A day after an intrusion attempt by the Chinese army in Ladakh, questions are being asked about the intent of the People's Liberation Army. Officially, the Chinese side has denied any sort of intrusion. China has said that it is unaware of reports of the PLA entering Indian territory. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, and I quote, "I'm not aware of the information. The Chinese side is committed to peace and tranquility of the China-India border," end quote. Now, the PLA tried to enter twice into Indian territory along the banks of the Pangong Lake in Ladakh, but were thwarted. An incident of this kind hasn't occurred before at the lake. However, the Chinese claims to Pangong are well known and go back many years. Whether this presages a broader escalation isn't clear either at this point. Any escalation by the Chinese side will be met by certain escalation from India is what the country stands by. It's not clear yet if the Chinese have factored this into their planning on the ground. There are no indications also whether the Chinese are prepared for an escalation. Now, the PLA leadership may not be orchestrating the pinpricks either, is what we're given to understand. On the Indian side, though, neither the Prime Minister Narendra Modi nor the President have made any mention of Doklam in their addresses to the nation. Moreover, there has been no briefing by the Chinese Foreign Ministry on Doklam of late. There is a hint, though, that some deal on de-escalation is being worked out. The Chinese media for now has been focused on the US-North Korea standoff. WION senior correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran joins me live on the broadcast from the WION newsroom. Ramesh, now after Doklam, we're hearing of excursions or rather incursions at the Pangong Lake. Bring us up to speed on where exactly the situation stands in terms of not just these incursions, but really speaking how both sides are responding at this point in time.
Aisha, this is not the first instance when the Chinese troops have either conducted an incursion or a transgression along the line of actual control that separates India from Tibet and China. But yesterday, between 6 a.m. local time and 9 a.m. local time, the Chinese troops from the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, made two attempts to make an incursion into Indian territory at the Pangong Lake in the northern Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, in Ladakh region especially, and that attempts were thwarted by the Indian Army and the Indian border guards. But that said, China has since put out a statement in the Chinese official media saying that they did not make any such incursions into Ladakh, but the fact remains that Indian troops did thwart their attempts, and there was an incident of stone pelting in the Ladakh area. And that's where things stand at the moment, and they have since withdrawn to their respective positions. Remember, the 50% of the Pangong Lake falls on the Indian side of the border and the remainder on the Tibetan side. So that's where things are at the moment, and the situation has been brought back under control.
Right. And what do you make, Ramesh, of reports that there is a de-escalation on the cards? And I ask you because, you know, that's quite a let's say, a change from the Chinese stance so far as Doklam goes.
Well, there's more than one way of interpreting this, these behind-the-scenes moves, as it were, to resolve the standoff on the Doklam Plateau. We are given to understand that India has consistently maintained that all diplomatic channels are open and will continue to be used in the days and weeks ahead to resolve the standoff. The media, at least, we're not aware of the goings-on behind the scenes, if they are indeed talking to each other. But the fact remains that both troops are they're still standing, and confronting on the Doklam Plateau, although the number of troops may have been reduced in weeks. But the fact remains that both sides are positioned where they are, even as we speak, on the Doklam Plateau. And Bhutan, for its part, says that it hopes that the issue will be resolved peacefully and amicably to mutual satisfaction. And so that's where things stand at the moment. But that said, one can't preclude the possibility or the probability of both sides holding talks in behind the scenes, as it were.
All right, Ramesh, one last question. The Foreign Ministry, as far as the Pangong, or rather the lake goes, has said that they have absolutely no idea about these claims of any kind of incursion, and yet the Indian side says that there have been incursions by the PLA. Does this indicate sort of a gap perhaps in the communication channels within China as well?
Not really, Asha. This is, the classic, defense. Every time an incursion is made or transgression is made, either along the line of actual control or on the delineated border that separates India from Tibet and China. So there's nothing untoward that's happened. These are, these are very common occurrences. Remember, in 2013, for instance, there was a similar standoff at Daulat Beg Oldi, the DBO sector in Jammu and Kashmir, and that incident took, at least a couple of days to resolve. Similarly, in 2014, for instance, Aisha, even as the President Xi Jinping was shaking hands with Prime Minister Modi in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, there was a standoff at Chumar that again resolved, soon thereafter. But this time on Doklam, the issue might be a little more stretched than usual, and both sides were given to one are making efforts to resolve this standoff to mutual satisfaction, and also the satisfaction of Bhutan in particular.
All right. Thanks, Ramesh Ramachandran, very much for that update on the existing situation as far as India and China goes.